Hey guys, what is going on? This is Pants Our Dragon, and today we'll be doing the top 10 best champions for Worlds Championship 2015. This will be basically a tier list for all worlds, and it'll be on patch 5.18, with of course the tier list being more oriented to, well, competitive play. So this tier list is going to be what the best champions are for Worlds Championship in my opinion. And also criteria is going to be based on how much people are being banned and picked, what champions are bringing much success to teams, and just overall what the powerful champions are. So it's going to be a bit different than your regular video. Anyways, with all that being said, let's get started. Alright, so first up we have Lee Sin at number 10. So Lee Sin is incredibly strong in the early game, and a lot of people actually specifically ban him against certain teams because they're actually scared of what the enemy jungler can do with Lee Sin. As there are going to be a lot of good Lee Sin players at Worlds, so they can definitely be using him to his fullest potential, and he becomes a very scary threat since he can ward hop jump to people and kick them into your team, or he can use his R to peel for his team and get away the enemy tanks or assassins. Lee Sin is definitely a power pick in the right hands, but I feel like not everyone at Worlds does play him. Some people are more oriented to champions who are more reliant like Elise and Rek'Sai. Next up at number 9 is Kalista. So you're seeing a lot of Kalista and Tristana being played in this tournament, but Kalista is definitely more of a power pick. They both have their strengths of course, like Tristana is better late game while Kalista is better in the early game and mid game. And if she can make that early game and mid game count, there won't be any late game for her to fall off on. Tristana is definitely better at taking out towers with her E, but the power of Kalista's early game and mid game is so strong that I feel like she's more of a threat, and that's why you see people banning her more than any other AD carry. Next at number 8 is going to be Rek'Sai. So Rek'Sai is definitely one of the top junglers for the jungle champion pool. What she offers is a lot of early game pressure, as she does well clearing the jungle, and her early games are pretty good since she does have a gap closer with her E and can knock up someone for 1 second. The utility she offers to her team is extremely good, as she does have a lot of mobility coming from her E, plus her ultimate is basically a free teleport, so that can give her a lot of options on where she wants to go next. What she also offers of course is extremely consistent peel with her W since it's not a skill shot. It's also AoE, and one of her biggest things is the tremor sense coming from her W. This can be a deciding factor whether she should go in or not, where the enemies may be in the fog of war, and also being underground gives her a lot of movement speed, so it can actually be pretty hard to get away from her. Her damage is also pretty good too for someone who doesn't need to build items, and definitely one of the top junglers to be played in this tournament. Next up at number 7 is gonna be Twisted Fate. I feel like this champion is super strong, especially when in coordination with your team at the fullest potential, as you can be making a lot of plays with them with your team. You can be like ganking bottom lane and cutting off people, or if you want a team fight, then of course just cut off people with your ultimate, and having that utility coming from your W with the 2-second stun, that's just so incredible for team fights. And of course he also offers great wave clear to his team, so getting sieged on is not a problem for him. Along with that, he's also pretty good at sieging too, since he's ranged, has a Lich Bane, and his W to destroy towers. He can also be a split pusher and do something like the 1-3-1 if coordinated properly with his team, which is definitely doable. Either way, he offers so much with his kit, definitely brings a lot of utility to his team, and is actually pretty good in all stages of the game. So he's definitely one of the power picks for mid lane. Next up right after him is going to be Azir, someone who has been nerfed so many times in Season 5, but it does not matter for competitive play. He's always going to be a super powerful pick, no matter what they do, as long as they don't really gut his AP ratios in my opinion. He's basically like a secondary AD carry, except he's AP. He also has self-peel with his ultimate, and he also has options like WEQ into the enemy team and insecting them with his ultimate. And on top of that, he can zone the enemies with his sand soldiers. So if they try and get near, say, the dragon pit, he just presses W and Q, bam, like 20% of their health gone, especially if they're squishy. He's also pretty hard to kill in lane because of his W and E, and that can be extended too with his Q. Plus he has his R, so it can be relatively hard to kill him in the laning phase, along with also being annoying and having good matchups in the laning phase too. He's definitely a very consistent pick for the World Championships because of this, as he does offer so many options to a team. And next up at number 5 is going to be Darius. I feel like he can actually be higher if people stop blind picking him into basically stuff that counters him, whether it be team composition or just a lane matchup, and people should also make team compositions around Darius, but people aren't really utilizing that fact yet. Only some teams are, and the rest are just basically blind picking him just because he's that like OP champion. In my perspective, he's pretty OP in certain team compositions. He's also pretty weak against enemies who can kite him and are basically not going to be in melee range of him. But again, he's also really good at enemies who basically shove 3 melees into his face, since his Q makes up basically most of his strengths. Either way, a champion who can build one offensive item and basically do a lot of damage is pretty stupid, and of course his new passive too. Yay for that passive. Next up is gonna be Lulu. So, Lulu is really good in basically every team composition you can think of. She enables a lot of champions, she's a flex pick so she can go mid or top or even, I guess, support. And she also has a lot of good lane matchups and is relatively safe in that sense. So you can first pick her and have no troubles with whatever the enemy is playing. And having this support mid laner or top laner, what your AD can do now is basically go ham, as he has a lot of support coming from you and I guess his support too. So since he has this confidence that he's not going to die, he can definitely get more autos in, or even flash in and get away with it, since there are a lot of shields coming in to back him up. And if a team has a really fed AD carry, it's near impossible to kill an AD carry. So when you have this Kog'Maw, when you have this Jinx in the backline just killing people, and the enemy has no way to deal with it, you've basically won the team fight. Oh, and also she has like synergy with Darius and other stuff. Next up at number 3, we have Elise. So in every game in week 1, she is either picked or banned. Why? Because she's just super strong in that early game. Having a 1.6 second stun and having a lot of damage output makes her a really strong early game jungler. But let's talk about team compositions instead and how well she fits into it. So just like Lulu, she fits into any team composition you want to give her, as her siege potential is really strong. Like you throw a cocoon, your team follows up, you get a pick, easy tower for you. And she's also in no danger when she goes into spider form, since she can use her repel and get away from sticky situations. And then of course she also outputs a lot of damage, and so she's not there just for the cocoons. Her only problem is you don't have a big frontline tank, but I feel like that's okay because you can diversify your build and still be useful. And finally, we're getting into the god tier picks of this tournament. And first up at number 2 is going to be Gangplank. So Gangplank offers too much zoning with his barrels. He also basically farms for the first 20 minutes, and once he gets his Triforce and Ghostblade or Infinity Edge, there's just too much damage coming from him and it's super annoying for the enemy to deal with. You want to siege on him, he has wave clear with his barrels, or can poke you down somehow by lining up those barrels and killing you. He also has his ultimate to have some global pressure on the other side of the map without being there, and of course it's also good wave clear too, along with his E. If needed, of course. Either way, once he gets his items, he's a monster. You want to dive him and try and kill him? Well, you run into his barrels and take like 700 damage, and you're also slowed. And also one good barrel explosion onto the enemy team probably will win you that team fight if he has his core items. Anyways, if I ever see him on purple side being picked up and blue side doesn't first pick him, I'll be pretty confused, and I feel like blue side kind of sealed their fate. And finally, at number 1 is going to be Mordekaiser. The 2 champions who will always be perma-banned on purple side. If not, well, GG to you. Anyways, why is Mordekaiser so strong? Well, his W is passive, that's 1, which can make him get a level advantage over his enemies. Number 2, he gets a ghost/dragon pet for sieging down turrets. Number 3, his Q does like 1000 damage. And if you add that all up, Mordekaiser snowballs extremely hard. Also, you can add that in the early game and mid game, he's actually much more stronger than the enemy's AD carry because, well, he's not a carry yet, since he probably doesn't have his Infinity Edge plus Phantom Dancer. So Mordekaiser is going to be more useful than the enemy carry for the majority of the game. And just like Gangplank, first picked on blue side or banned on purple side. Anyways, that is it for top 10 champions for World Championship. Leave a like if you actually liked this video and want to support the channel. Comment below on what you think is the best champion for Worlds that's not Mordekaiser or Gangplank. And I am Pantera Dragon, and I'll see you guys next time.